one of the last miracles that Jesus performed before he was crucified is what we're looking at this morning. In the book of Luke chapter 17 is where we'll be as we're looking at Are You Thankful? We spent the whole month so far, the last 3 weeks, looking at being thankful. Jesus is getting ready to go to Samaria, and he is passing through Galilee on his way to Jerusalem. And while he's already seen a leper and has healed him, we come across not just one leper, not just 2 lepers, but 10 lepers that Jesus encounters here in Luke chapter 17. And it is a powerful place. So, go with me. Luke chapter 17, verses 11 through 19. Sorry. When you have it, let's stand together as we read. On the way to Jerusalem, he was passing along between Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers, who stood at a distance and lifted up their voice, saying, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. When he saw them, he said to them, Go and show yourselves to the priest. And as they went, they were cleansed. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. And he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus answered, Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner? And he said to him, Rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well. You see, I like this story because too many times we fall into that. That God blesses us. God rewards us. God gives us so much. Just like that song said, I'm not here for a blessing. I just want you. Too many times we're wanting God's blessings. We're wanting God to do something to us. And then when he does do something, it's like, well, you're God. You're supposed to do that. And that's the end of the story. Too many times we're like the 9 other lepers, that when God gives us something, we're okay with that. We expect that. And that's the end of the story. And we're not like the one leper who chose to come back to God. Leprosy was a dreaded disease in Bible times. In the law of Moses, God gave very detailed instructions on how to deal with people and or things that had contracted this disease. Anyone who became a leper was basically dead while alive. He or she had to remain out of contact with others, and should anyone who wasn't a leper come near, the leper must scream out, Unclean, unclean. And they had to shout it as loud as they could so that if somebody was hard of hearing or was too far off, they would know, you need to go a different route, stay away, I am not clean. Leprosy was a skin disease that, from what most people say, that it started as a little white discoloration on your skin and eventually spread, and it would spread to your face, your hands, your feet, and then eventually to the whole body. So it was visible that you have this. And it makes you ceremonially unclean. You couldn't worship anything because it was highly contagious. It's kind of like COVID. I touch it, you got it. And so it was one of those that even penicillin can't cure because there was no vaccine, there was no medicine, there was no ointment, there was nothing that you could do to get rid of this disease. You had to have somebody else help you get rid of it. And if you see through here, there's nowhere where it says that they could get healed when you look through the Old Testament. It always came through someone else. They're not supposed to have any dealings with anyone. But not even their own family members can come visit. We think isolation and quarantine is horrible. But imagine these people, they're cut off forever from their family unless something happens and it disappears. Then they have to go and do other things. But the scripture tells us in verse 19 that one of them was a Samaritan. In John chapter 4, verse 9, Jesus said, "For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans." This is a verse talking about when Jesus met the woman at the well who was a Samaritan. He said they don't have dealings with Samaritans because they were considered half-breeds. They were the worthless outcasts. They were part Jew, part Gentile that mixed together. And so they were shunned by society. Jews would travel 10, 20, 30, sometimes even 50 miles out of the way to avoid having to go through Samaria. They'd rather go through enemy territory to avoid going through that town. How many times do we try to avoid going through places just because they're not as pleasant? You know, when I'm going to Dallas, I do my best to make sure to hit it early, hit it late, but don't hit it during rush hour. I went to a conference one time and was in Fort Worth, stayed at one end and had to go to downtown, and it had people from all over the country, and one person asked a brilliant question: why do they call it rush hour when nobody's rushing? You're just sitting, waiting. 30 minutes to get from the hotel to the conference. And when I left, rush hour is over, it took 5 minutes on the interstate to get back to the hotel, but rush hour, it took me 30 minutes one day, it took an hour the next day. That does not sound like fun. Let me find another way around. That's why I love when I'm going, and I need to get over to Dallas, I'm not going down through downtown Fort Worth and Dallas. I'm going to take the loop around, bypass all that mess, and get where I need to go. And if you get lucky, you get on that the express lane, and you're zooming. You see all of them cars. You just wave as you drive by. Problem is, if you ain't careful, you'll end up in the wrong part of town because there's not an exit off of that express lane. Found that again. But, you know, we try everything to avoid problems. And we do everything we can to avoid people that can cause us problems. You know, those sticky people, those people that just get under your skin, those people that just really irritate you. But you know, maybe, just maybe, you are exactly what that person needs. They may be sticky so they can stick to you, because you may be the only person that will show them God's love. You may be the only person that can bring healing to their life, to their situation. A little convicting. But maybe, just maybe, we are that sticky person to somebody else. You know, that annoying family member that shows up at Christmas, Thanksgiving. If you don't know who that one is, it's probably you. Sometimes we need that person because they have a need that needs to be met. And here Jesus finds these 10 people. Jesus didn't let man-made customs and culture dictate what he did or didn't do. Who he talked to, who he didn't talk to, who he touched and who he didn't touch. There's 3 things I want us to see this morning. The first one is they made a request. They made a request of Jesus. And it was unusual because it's not like any other request that was made of Jesus up to this point. And the only other time that there was a request like this made was the thief on the cross. So only 2 times in Jesus' ministry that's recorded this request is made. These lepers were following the code and protocol of the day. Even though we're not told what, if anything, they were wearing, they did stand a far off. But they did something unusual. Not just only did they say unclean, unclean, but notice what they said in verse 13. Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. Mercy. Knowing who Jesus was, they even called him Master. So surely they'd heard about the miracles that he had done. This is chronologically coming into the last week of Jesus' life. We're either 7 or 8 days away from the crucifixion. He's coming in. They surely have heard about what he has done before. They had heard that he had already healed lepers before. He's healed the sick. He's raised the dead. And all they said is, have mercy on us. They didn't ask, Jesus, heal us. Jesus, set us free. Jesus, give a message to my family. Jesus, do this for me. All they said was, Jesus, have mercy on us. See, they knew something that we too many times forget. That we don't need God's stuff. We don't even need God's blessings. We need His mercy. We need His love, His forgiveness. See, James tells it like it is. He said the reason why we don't have is because we don't ask. Or if we ask with the wrong motives. So, how much more so with this request? Now, compare that to another leper that was found in Matthew chapter 8. Jesus is just coming down the mountainside from giving one of the best known sermons that he ever preached, the Sermon on the Mount. He's coming down the mountain. He meets this one leper that comes up to him and it says, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. Lord, have mercy. Lord, clean me, if you will. If you're willing. But don't we do that a lot of times when we come to God with something? God, if it's your will, you'll do this for me. If it's your will, give me this. If it's your will, do this for me. And then we start negotiating. God, if it's your will, do this for me, and then I'll do this for you. Why don't we just, if we're having to negotiate and throw it into something that if God does, then we probably should be doing it anyway, whether He does anything for us or not. So we need to be willing put ourselves aside. He said, if you're clean, make me whole. But notice what Jesus said in verse 3 with their request. He said, I am willing, be clean. He healed them. There. We see other places that when Jesus asked them, when people came and said they needed to be healed, or he showed up somewhere, he touched them, he did something, he spoke something, and they were healed. At one point, he got really gross to a blind guy. He spit in the dirt, made mud, and put that on his eyes.
He didn't see
it. He didn't say it. I hadn't thought of that. Okay. Then there's another place where a guy was deaf, and he spit on his fingers and stuck it in his ears, and he spit on his finger and touched his tongue. Definitely wouldn't do that in the COVID era. I don't want you doing that anyway. That's just gross. But Jesus did it, and they were healed. He told a dead person that's laying there wrapped up, get up off your bed and walk. Told the lame people, get up, run, jump, do something. He called a dead man that had been wrapped up and already decaying for 4 days. And I love it because you got to go King James on this one. King Jimmy got it best. Said, roll the stone away. And Martha, his sister, said, oh Lord, don't do that. He's been dead for 4 days. Surely he stinketh. You gotta add that ETH. That just makes my day. Surely he stinketh. And he said, do you not believe? And then because of who he is, he had to use the name Lazarus, or everybody in that graveyard would have came out. Lazarus, come forth, and out from the tomb came a guy wrapped up in cloths. He's willing to heal. He's willing to restore. You see countless stories in the Old Testament. You have the woman who was down and out and was about to fix the last amount of bread for her and her son before they died. They're going to be their final meal. They'd run out of meal. They'd run out of oil. And a prophet showed up and said, go make me a biscuit. I'm a little hungry. So we're about to have our final meal. We don't have anything. But you are a prophet of God, so I'll go do it. Because they were faithful. Because they were faithful, God rewarded her. And the entire time the famine was going on, the oil never ran out of the barrel, and there was always meal to make bread. All he asked for was a biscuit, and she had enough that she could make a living off of. See, God will provide our needs if we're asking. But sometimes he goes a little step farther. Because we saw their request is, have mercy on us. But Jesus was a little different in his response this time. Instead of be clean, instead of you're healed, he says this. Notice what he says in verse 14. Go and show yourselves to the priests. That's it. Go and show yourselves to the priest. I didn't ask to go show myself to the priest. I asked for mercy, and you're sending me back to the priest. Only reason why I'm supposed to go back is because I don't have these spots anymore. I don't have leprosy. I don't have this disease. I've been cleaned. That's the only reason why I'm supposed to go back to the priest. I can't go in the temple. I'm a leper. I've got this problem. And he tells them, go. Go. Jesus seems a little cold, a little short. I'm asking for mercy, and you tell me go. You're here, and you're telling me to go away. And that would be horrible if with that period the story ended. But there's more to the story. Because let's look at the result that comes from this. The rest of verse 14. This is where it gets really exciting. And as they went, they were cleansed. Now notice, they and they, all 10. As the 10 lepers went, the 10 lepers were lepers no more. They were cleansed. Sometimes in our life, we are sitting here begging God to give us an answer. We are praying and asking Him, do something for us, do something, do something. I need you to move. Maybe it's what it is in the song to say, I just need more of you. I want to feel you. Jesus, hold me. I am desperate. I need you. Maybe we're praying that, and that's our prayer. Maybe, God, I need you to supply my need. I need you to do this for me. I need you to do that for me. Whatever it is, we keep on praying and praying. Don't give up hope. Don't think God doesn't care about you when He's not answering. Sometimes the problem is we haven't moved from the spot. God said when we pray to Him to go do something, and we're not doing that because we're waiting for the answer to this, well, it may just be that we're like these 10 lepers, that in order for us to get it, we got to go do what else He's told us to do. And as we're going, we get what they got. Imagine their reaction. So they're talking amongst themselves, probably grumbling, like we would. They are men, so. They're grumbling. We ask for mercy, and He sends us back to town so that we can get kicked out again. Isn't it bad enough we already have to live out here in no man's land? We don't have the nicest things. Our clothes are falling off of us. We haven't seen our family in years. All we get is crumbs that somebody throws to us as a joke. And now you're telling us, go back to the city so that we can get kicked out and laughed at again. But they went. And as they're going, skin has been restored. They're not the same as it was before. They were healed. And just like leprosy, sin is a disease that's all over us. And we're covered in it from head to toe. And just like leprosy that didn't discriminate, you had Jews that got it, you had Samaritans that got it, you had royalty that got it. Naaman was head up in the government, and he went to get healing and from the prophet, and he told him, go get into the water, the dirty, nasty Jordan River, and dip in it 7 times. And he complained. He said, why do I have to come all the way down here to this nasty water? I got water that's cleaner than that everywhere else that I've been. So why is it that you're doing this? Why is it that you're wanting me to dip in the dirtiest, nastiest water? I have clean water at home. So why go here? But it says that on the 7th time that he dipped in the water, as he came up, his skin had returned to its purity. And that's how it's supposed to be. When we come to Christ, we dip in the water and we are made whole again. It's something about in the process of doing something. You know, God saves us from our sin. When he died on the cross, Jesus paid our sin penalty. Jesus saved us on the cross at that exact moment. But we aren't saved until we ask him to save us. We're not forgiven of our sin until we ask God to forgive us of our sin. See, it's already been paid for. It's already been done. We just have to ask for it. Just like with the 10 lepers, they were healed at the very moment that Jesus said, go show yourselves to the priest. Because he's the great healer. They had to take that step of faith and start walking back, not knowing what was going to happen, and all of a sudden on the way, it just so happened they were healed. So we don't need to give up when it seems like God isn't answering our requests. It just may be we're in the wrong place. We need to get up and start moving. We need to get closer. A lot of times we cry out, God, I need you to be near to me. I need you to be close. Problem is so much most of the time that he's not close to us. It's we walked away from him. See, here's the thing that we need to grasp with this story as well, is that they were outside the city. They were outside of where God's presence is. This is Jerusalem, where Jesus was headed to. They're outside. They're not in the city. They're away from God's worship. They're away from God's people. They're isolated from everybody and everything. So Jesus said, let me go to them. And let's just see what happens. The result was that all 10 were healed. But notice,